Hear me?
Yes, Mataji, very clear.
Okay. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Sandana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Sandana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। इस्कॉन फाउंडर आचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। श्री श्री राधा माधव की जय। श्री कृष्ण चंद्र की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। श्री मायापुर धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगा माई की जय। यमुना माई की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। बृहद मृदंग की जय। समवेता भक्त वृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.8.37 Apyatya nastvam sukrute hita prabhu jihasasi swita suridho nu vinah yesham na chan yad bhavatah padam bhujat parayanam rajasu yojitam hasam. Api, if, adya, today, nah, us, tvam, you, swakruta, self-executed, ihita, all deities, prabhu, O my Lord, jihasasi, giving up, swit, possibly, surida, intimate friends, anujivina, living at the mercy of, yesham, of whom, na, nor, cha, and, anyat, anyone else, bhavatah, your, padma ambujat, from the lotus feet, parayanam, dependent, rajasu, unto the kings, yojita, engaged in, ahamsam, enmity. Translation. O my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today? Though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us, now when all kings are at enmity with us. The Pandavas are most fortunate because with all good luck, they were entirely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. In the material world, to be dependent on the mercy of someone else is the utmost sign of misfortune. But in the case of our transcendental relation with the Lord, it is the most fortunate case when we can live completely dependent on Him. The material disease is due to thinking of becoming independent of everything. But the cruel material nature does not allow us to become independent. The false attempt to become independent of this stringent law of nature is known as material advancement of experimental knowledge. The whole material world is moving on this false attempt of becoming independent of the laws of nature. Beginning from Ravana, who wanted to prepare a direct staircase to the planets of heaven, down to the present age. They are trying to overcome the laws of nature. They are trying now to approach distant planetary systems by electronic mechanical power. But the highest goal of human civilization is to work hard under the guidance of the Lord and become completely dependent on Him. The highest achievement of perfect civilization is to work with valor but at the same time depend completely on the Lord. The Pandavas were the ideal executors of this standard of civilization. Undoubtedly, they were completely dependent on the goodwill of Lord Sri Krishna. But they were not idle parasites of the Lord. They were all highly qualified both by personal character and by physical activities. Still, they always looked for the mercy of the Lord because they knew that every living being is dependent by constitutional position. The perfection of life is therefore to become dependent on the will of the Lord, instead of becoming falsely independent in the material world. Those who try to become falsely independent of the Lord are called anath, or without any guardian, whereas those who are completely dependent on the will of the Lord are called sanath, or those having someone to protect them. Therefore, we must try to be sanath so that we can always be protected from the unfavorable condition of material existence. By the deluding power of the external material nature, we forget that the material condition of life is the most undesirable perplexity. The Bhagavad Gita therefore directs us 7.19 that after many, many births, one fortunate person become aware of the fact that Vasudev is all in all, and that the best way of leading one's life is to surrender unto him completely. That is the sign of a Mahatma. All the members of the Pandavas family were Mahatmas in household life. Maharaj Yudhishthir was the head of these Mahatmas, and Queen Kunti Devi was the mother. The lessons of the Bhagavad Gita and all the Puranas, specifically the Bhagavatam Puran, are therefore inevitably connected with the history of the Pandavas Mahatmas. For them, separation from the Lord was just like the separation of a fish from water. Srimati Kunti Devi, therefore, felt such separation like a thunderbolt, and the whole prayer of the queen is to try to persuade the Lord to stay with them. After the battle of Kurukshetra, although the inimical kings were killed, their sons and grandsons were still there to deal with the Pandavas. It is not only the Pandavas who were put into the condition of enmity, but all of us are always in such a condition. And the best way of living is to become completely dependent on the will of the Lord, and thereby overcome all difficulties of material existence. 1.8.38 Kevayam namarupabhyam yadubhihi sapandavaha bhavato darshanam yarhi rishikanami veshtu. K, who are, Vayam, we, namarupabhyam, without fame and ability, yadubhihi, with the yadus, saha, along with, pandavaha, and the pandavas, bhavatah, your, adarshanam, absence, yarhi, as if, rishikanam, of the senses, aiva, like, isitu, of the living being. Translation: as the name and fame of a particular body is finished with the disappearance of the living spirit, similarly, if you do not look upon us, all our fame and activities, along with the Pandavas and Yadus, will end at once. Kunti Devi is quite aware that the existence of the Pandavas is due to Sri Krishna only. The Pandavas are undoubtedly well established in name and fame and are guided by the great king Yudhishthira, who is morality personified, and the Yadus are undoubtedly great allies. But without the guidance of Lord Krishna, all of them are non entities. As much as the senses of the body are useless without the guidance of consciousness. No one should be proud of his prestige, power, and fame without being guided by the favor of the Supreme Lord. The living beings are always dependent, and the ultimate dependable object is the Lord Himself. We may therefore invent by our advancement of material knowledge all sort of counteracting material resources, but without being guided by the Lord, all such inventions end in fiasco, however strong and stout the reactionary elements may be. 1.8.39 Nayam shobhishyate tatra yathedani gadadhara त्वतपदेर अंकिता भाति स्वलक्षण विलक्षितैः न not iyam this land of our kingdom shobhiyate will appear beautiful tatra then yatha as it is now idanim now gadadhara o Krishna tvat your padehe by the feet ankita marked bhati is dazzling swalakshana your own marks vilakshitaihi by the impressions. Translation: O Gadadhar Krishna, our kingdom is now being marked by the impressions of your feet, and therefore it appears beautiful. But when you leave, it will no longer be so. There are certain particular marks on the feet of the Lord which distinguish the Lord from others. The marks of a flag, thunderbolt, an instrument to drive an elephant, umbrella, lotus, disc, etc. are on the bottom of the Lord's feet. These marks are impressed upon the soft dust of the land where the Lord traverses. The land of Hastinapur was thus marked, while Lord Krishna was there with the Pandavas. And the kingdom of Pandavas thus flourished by such auspicious signs. Kunti Devi pointed out these distinguished features and was afraid of ill luck in the absence of the Lord. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjala Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sachivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि न हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यापं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, Dandavat Pranam to each one of you. Thank you, Karuna Chaitanya Prabhu, for your kind words. Although I'm truly Anuvadi, I also thank you for encouraging and giving me an opportunity to give a class. So I must endeavor to serve Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Please correct me and guide me in my endeavor. If you have any questions, please make a note of it because this is my first class. So you can ask at the end of the class, please. I'm sure senior devotees would be happy to answer it for us. And please share your reflections and comments as well. So these three verses from Kunti Maharani's prayers, when I was preparing, my understanding is they show her full surrender to Krishna and help us in understanding our value with and without Krishna. And finally, the last verse talks about our condition with and without Krishna. So Kunti Maharani was completely dependent on Krishna's mercy. I was meditating on the reason why it is so hard for people in material world to depend on Krishna. Why do they hesitate to depend on Krishna? I was one of them. Why did I take so long to surrender? To come to this agreement that yes, I'm not independent. Then I read the purport, and it stated that in the material world, to be dependent on the mercy of someone else is the utmost sign of misfortune. But in the case of our transcendental relation with the Lord, it is the most fortunate case when we can live completely dependent on Him. So if you observe, people in material world have been taught to be independent since childhood. We have been told to not depend on anyone and not to trust anyone blindly. Throughout our childhood, we trained ourselves to be independent. In fact, in the modern world, children are, if you see, they're taught to be independent since they are literally babies and toddlers to an extent that they become selfish and arrogant by the time they're grown up. It's been done in a very subtle way, but everyone in society contribute in making the child a so-called independent person. Children are taught about sharing and caring in nurseries. In schools, they are taught about good values and they start following it. So then parents tell them not to overdo it or be careful. And people have been trained to fake and then they follow the same training manual for their kids. So the point I'm trying to make is that we have been taught to be independent, and it is to avoid disappointment from society, to show that we are strong and we can handle things on our own. And due to this individualistic approach, humanity is dying every day. Today, we live in a fast-paced and a cutthroat competitive world, and everyone in the material world is trying to outsmart each other, to be better, to be faster. And human race is even fiddling with the laws of nature, trying to control population, exploiting natural resources, animals, everything. I've seen a new trend in past few years. Parents are using, these days they're using these belts to support babies to crawl and walk, because even before the babies are ready to achieve that milestone, parents are not allowing babies to take their own time to stand up on their feet. They want it fast. I've seen parents using support to help their children to stand up and walk. And then there is this big lobby of scientists and doctors to support them, that it's all right to do it. Children in India at the age of 10 and 11, same age as Cavalier, when they should be out and about, are learning coding and accent training. So it's happening in many other countries as well. But I've seen in India, children are going to school 7 hours, then tuition, then sports, and then the coding and learning US or UK accent. People are actually turning next generation into machines. The competition is getting tougher day by day. Materialistic people feel that being independent is a sign of smartness and confidence. And I would say which is due to the Kali Yuga's four prominent defects, which are stated in Ishopanishad: cheating propensity, committing mistakes, being in illusion, and limited senses. Due to these defects, people had bad experiences in life, and they have seen failures in life. We've all seen failures in life, either in this life or past life. But due to those impressions of being cheated or failures, people's brain have been programmed to see themselves as unfortunate if they depend upon anyone. And the conditioning is so strong that humans find it hard to depend upon God, because it is a sign of weakness, because then they must deal with all the reasoning and challenges presented before them, like how can you depend upon God? Have you seen God? You are weak, so you're using God as an excuse, and etc. On the other hand, devotees understand that they can only depend on Krishna. Kunti Maharani was an intelligent and great devotee. She knew that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so she did not mind the hardships and challenging times her family and herself had to go through. We will go through her teachings throughout the class, but I would like to share a couple of things I learned from Kunti Maharani's childhood and her prayers. I learned how to encourage and engage my son in devotional service. Kunti Devi's father trusted her and engaged her in devotional service. Kunti Maharani was given the responsibility to take care of Durvasa Rishi. It was such a great responsibility for a young princess. Many of you might know that the story of Pandavas when they were in forest. Krishna literally had to come and help them because Duryodhan sent Durvasa Muni to meet Pandavas in the forest. And Durvasa Rishi's anger was known in 3 worlds. And at that time, he instructed Yudhishthir Maharaj, the Durvasa Rishi instructed Yudhishthir Maharaj to prepare prasad for all his rishis who were accompanying him. Pandavas had no bhoga to make prasad, and Draupadi helplessly called Sri Krishna for help. So if you see, Pandavas were so powerful and experienced in life. Earlier, they used to distribute food to thousands of people in charity. But during this time, in the forest, they were in a helpless situation and could not arrange prasadam for few rishis. But on the other hand, Kunti Devi was a princess living in a palace, raised with all the opulences and having no real life experience. Of course, she was trained and educated by her father, but she was never put into a real life situation where at this young age where she had to serve the Durvasa Rishi. It was a great responsibility. But Kunti Devi not just performed the devotional service, she pleased Durvasa Rishi. So Kunti Devi was not any ordinary princess. Her father taught her values, trained her, showed her faith in her, and she learned all of it and followed all values and instructions taught by her father and lived with those values throughout. So Kunti Devi had unflinching faith and complete surrender to Krishna. Therefore, the adversity and challenges in her life could not break her. She knew that these adversities are called by 3 modes of material nature. But if she is under Krishna's shelter, she is safe from the 3 modes of material nature. And it is true that we are safe as long as we are with Krishna. As soon as we turn away from Krishna, we are in great danger. So, but it never struck until I read these purports and these prayers. It never struck my mind that I should engage my son, Cavalya, in serving Vaishnavas until I came across this prayers that, oh yes, it's the right age. In fact, I should have started early. So one of my learning from Kunti Maharani's childhood is to engage my child in serving other Vaishnavas, which will help him develop the right serving mood, just like Kunti Maharani's father did. Secondly, and I would say more importantly, live by example, by learning and following our Acharya's instructions sincerely, just like Kunti Maharani followed her father's teachings and instructions. So that will set a good example for Kaivalya, and that, yeah, you should not just talk about devotional service, we should actually do it and follow instructions. Third is to develop faith and full surrender to Krishna, which is very, very important. Kunti Maharani's faith was so strong that she prayed for more and more challenges. She said to Krishna that she is ready to go through many more hardships if Krishna is with her. But she cannot imagine that Krishna is gone. She was in bliss with Krishna despite all her hardships. And we can all relate to Kunti Maharani's bliss in a small way at the time, because at some point of time in everyone's life we go through some testing times. And I would like to share how I have noticed different people react or respond during the crisis. So first is let's talk about people with faith in God. If they are going through some crisis, they usually pray for strength and beg, oh God, please bring us out of this crisis. And when they come out of the crisis successfully, and let's say the outcome is not what they've hoped for, they feel little disappointment, happy but disappointed. So they are happy because the crises are finally over, but at the same time, they are little disappointed because the outcome is not what they wanted. But however, due to their faith in God, they accept it as God's plan and carry on. But when materialistic people are facing some crisis and they come out of it successfully, they feel happy and proud. They say that they became more experienced, mature, confident, strong, but they don't realize that they sometimes become insensitive and their false ego is almost touching the sky. And the happiness that they feel is temporary. So very important thing is when we think that we are controlling the situation, and even if we face some hardships and we come out of it successfully, that happiness or bliss is temporary. But still, people do not want to surrender to God. They continue to believe in themselves. They want to continue to believe in themselves. And irony is that they depend on everything else. Like they depend on employers, they depend on customers, they depend on governments, family, friends, etc. But they don't accept God as the ultimate authority. And due to being in the mode of ignorance, they do not understand that they depend upon the three modes of material nature, which is Krishna's energy. They happily depend on TED Talks, motivational speakers, but they don't want to depend on Krishna. And this is nothing but duality. Krishna says in 2.45 to be free from all such dualities. Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna, Nirdvandvo Nitya Sastvasto, Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. Krishna says, O Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. So the point is, in the material world, people happily live in duality, and upon overcoming the crisis, they feel happiness, although it is temporary. But for a pure devotee like Kunti Maharani, she was always blissful, despite her circumstances. Such was her devotion. She was always blissful. Kunti Maharani's life, as per the materialistic point of view, was nothing less than a misery. She was miserable. She had to leave her first son, Karna. She never got affection from her husband, so ill treatment to her sons, would have died due to the fire in Lakshagra. She witnessed the disrobing of Draupadi. She saw great personality failing to protect Draupadi, but that did not shake her faith in Krishna. She kept praying and came out of these testing times with stronger faith and deep surrender to God. Just like Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruv Maharaj. So Kunti Maharani says, "Oh my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today? Though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us." She knows that after the war, the enemy kings have died, but their children would again create some disturbance in the region, in that province. Although no one in the entire Aryavat had courage to have direct war against Pandavas after the great Mahabharat war. But Kunti Maharani knew that there will be some sort of disturbance. And she knew that the ability in her children was due to Krishna. And they constantly needed to be under Krishna's shelter and required guidance. Once Krishna is gone, their good fortune will be gone too. That's what she's saying in the prayers. Because for a devotee, being with Krishna is the ultimate aim and fortune. Kunti Maharani feels safe in Krishna's presence despite all these hardships, and thus she's trying to pursue Krishna to stay back. Now, coming to the second verse, another learning from these verses is about our values with and without Krishna. So what is our value with and without Krishna? That is explained by Kunti Maharani here. She gives all the credit for Pandava's success to Krishna. She says that Pandavas are famous and important, but they have no value if Krishna is not with them. So Kunti Maharani says, Ke vayam nama rupa bhyam. We have our name and fame, but without you, it is all useless. It has no value. Just how a body is dead without consciousness. So another takeaway from Kunti Maharani's prayer as a parent for me is how to constantly remember that every ability within us and our children is Krishna's mercy. Again, because it's so hard. We live in material world. We meet all the people, and then we have that constant pressure. And today's time, children are constantly praised for their every small and big achievement. They get gifts, well-done cards, treats, etc. We have been trained and I would say subconsciously forced to think that on every little success we must praise our children. And if we don't do that, we are not good parents. There is a constant pressure to say, we're so proud of you, you have done well, great, and all that. So sometimes we genuinely get carried away and feel, oh, my son, my daughter has done this and that. I mean, we must acknowledge, appreciate, and celebrate their success, but there has to be a balance. There are literally, I've seen daily routine charts available online to encourage children to do their daily plans. Even many parents who spoke to me when Cavalier was young was to, they used to share that what charts they are using and what charts I could use to encourage Cavalier. That is all fine. I mean, when they are young, they need that the chart and interactive tools to, get things done. But now they are using charts to do your regular nitya karma, and parents say, oh, we are proud of you. I mean, they get stickers, hugs, kisses for brushing their teeth. I mean, I've done it myself, because then end of the day, if you see, sometimes you just want them to quickly do everything, and if one sticker or say praise is making them do things fast, why not? But then we need to stop and think how it will impact their devotional service. Would they want devotees to praise them for serving Krishna? Because they will get into the habit that whenever they do something, they are praised, and there's it's noticed by others. So the point is, it's very easy for parents to think their children have achieved something great. They are special. We are special family. And the moment we start thinking on those lines, we break ties with Krishna, because then it all becomes about I, me, and mine. My child is great because I'm great, because we are the best family in the community. My child should get to perform in the dance because she's the best. My son should be in the front row. We don't even realize when it starts and when we start overdoing things. But if you see Kunti Maharani's conduct, despite having such exceptional children, she says that it's all because of Krishna, and it's all useless if Krishna is gone. So my takeaway from these prayers is that I must praise my child, but remind myself and him that the ability in us is due to Krishna, and constantly remember that the ability is due to Krishna. Kunti Maharani begs to Krishna, there is no use of having great kingdoms, as the greatest opulence is Krishna. So this is, this was a very important take away for me. I was raised in India, and while preparing for the class, I just recalled how everyone, when I was young, how everyone in my family or friends, anyone in neighborhood, when we achieved something, parents will glorify teachers, coaches, ancestors, and ultimately God for sending all these people in our life. So due to which we could, achieve something. If we got good marks, we have to go and take and pay our respect to our teachers and take some sweets for them. If it's sports, we have to, praise we have to go and take blessings of our coaches. In everything and anything, ancestors were also remembered that, oh, it's because of their blessing you achieved this. And then ultimately, God, that, oh, because he sent everybody for you so that you can do something good. We in fact had to offer our certificates and trophies to God. And now I think that because of that, we learned humility and not to take any credit, as it's never belonged to us. And we also learned how to glorify and remember everyone's contribution in our success. And I think it's very important that we teach our children to not forget everyone's role in their success. And that is purely due to Krishna's mercy upon us. So just how Kunti Maharani was aware and expressed that the ability in Pandavas to achieve the Rajya from Kauravas was due to Krishna's mercy and guidance. So my takeaway is to remember everyone's contribution in bringing me closer to Krishna, starting from Srila Prabhupada, due to whose unlimited mercy I came in contact with wonderful devotees and we can pray together. Today I'm giving the class. Despite the pandemic, we took Radha Madhav's darshan every day and we are able to chant, offer services to Radha Madhav, and it's pure mercy. So anyhow, Kunti Maharani says, if Krishna is with her, she does not mind suffering again and again. It's deep because as a mother, I know that a mother's heart is always thinking about her children. As children, when we visit our parents, our mothers are, they're after us to feed us, to, make nice, opulent prasad for us. When a child comes from school, the first thing a mother thinks is to feed the child. Imagine seeing our child live in a forest for a week. I can't imagine how Kunti Maharani could bear the pain of having her sons be in the forest for 12 years. That too not ordinary sons. Bhim, whose other name was Bragodar, who was a voracious eater, and he had to eat austere food for 12 years, and is the worst punishment for a mother. But Kunti Devi here says that let all those calamities come again and again. But if you leave us, our life is nothing. So I also know many grandparents who say that, oh, they have more affection for their grandsons, grandchildren. And Kunti Maharani witnessed all her grandsons were killed. So she had to witness that as well. These are great sufferings and heartbreaking. But still, Kunti Maharani says, without Krishna, everything is useless. Kunti Maharani explains she does not care about the kingdoms, her sons, the Yadus, etc. Because without Krishna, everything is useless. This is the level of a deep detachment from the relationships and opulences and her attachment to Krishna. So towards the end, in the last verse, Kunti Maharani says, everything is beautiful in their kingdom due to Krishna's presence, and most of us would happily agree. It is so true. Recently, we have been on a holiday and our deities were resting, Gauranga Nityananda. And when we came back, the house had no charm, literally no charm. So I kept the house clean because I wanted one thing less when on my return, because when you come from holiday, you have unpacking, then washing and everything. But I thought I'll keep the house clean. So at least one thing is good. And usually when the house is clean, I'm very happy. I'm a very happy person. But the house had no charm. It didn't feel right. But the next morning, when we performed Aarti, offered bhoga and water, and had some kirtan, the whole atmosphere in the house changed. Everything looked beautiful, and it was due to transcendental presence of the deities who are non-different than Krishna. So every single word in Kunti Maharani's prayers is an instruction or guideline to shape our consciousness in the right direction. The entire creation works under Krishna's instruction, and creation is beautiful. Just by seeing stars on the sky or lush green fields, or just going out and see, have a nice walk in nature, we feel peaceful, we feel blissful. So what to speak of the Creator? Sometimes when we see material nature, we feel blissful because it is created by Krishna. But we can't feel the same when we see an iPhone or any other gadgets. Can we imagine seeing a picture of Steve Jobs and feeling blissed, or a photo of a person who invented Amazon or a car? But on the other hand, Krishna, who created this material nature, is all attractive. Thus, the biggest fear of a devotee is to forget Krishna. Kunti Maharani in last verse explains that the beauty in their lives, kingdom, and relationship was due to Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, also, Krishna says, I am the taste of water, the light in sun and moon, smell of the soil. So everything is beautiful when Krishna is present. While preparing for the class, I recalled when our temple, Leicester Temple, hall was renovated. Earlier, the building was a bank, but as soon as it was converted into a temple and Sri Radha Madhav decided to come to Leicester, the same place became beautiful. It was lifeless before. It was just a building. And after Radha Madhav came, the same place became full of life, full of bliss. So everything in Krishna's presence is indeed beautiful, because after all, Krishna is all attractive and beautiful. Therefore, Kunti Maharani was also trying her best to convince Krishna to stay back, as without him, happiness and beauty and opulence in their kingdom will be gone. If we see Kunti Maharani's conduct throughout her life, she lived the principle taught to us in Shiksha Ashtakam, verse 3, which talks about how a devotee must behave. Trunadapi sunichena, taror api sahishnuna, amanina manadena, kirtaniya sadahari. So one should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all senses of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So, despite being a queen, Kunti Devi was humble, and she was tolerating the hardships, all the hard times, as Krishna's mercy. She was still respectful towards Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, and Bhishma, even Duryodhan, and etc. All the Duryodhan, Dushasan, and Dhritarashtra, along with other Kauravas, were always mean, dishonest, and cunning with her. Bhishma Dev could not protect her son. Nobody could protect their right. Nobody could give them the what they deserved. And still, while this is all was done to her, she was still respectful. And while all this was happening, she kept praying to Krishna constantly. She was just constant in remembering Krishna. His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, in one of his lectures, says that having faith in every situation and circumstances is the perfection of life. Kunti Maharani in her prayers reflects the same mood. In Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, there is a verse which quite nicely describes Kunti Maharani's heart. It goes like this: Krishna Surya Sama Maya hoye andhakara, yaha Krishna taha nahi Mayaro adhikara. So it means Krishna is just like the brilliant sun, and Maya, ignorance, is just like darkness. So Maya, ignorance, is just like darkness. When the sun is present, there cannot be darkness. So if we keep ourselves in Krishna consciousness always, if we are Krishna conscious always, we cannot be influenced by the darkness of ignorance. So Kunti Maharani's prayer was so deeply important to Srila Prabhupada as well. Prabhupada was inspired to deeply meditate on these verses during the period of his hardships and trial. it is clear that, these prayers gave him comfort. Even before the ISKCON was founded in 1966, during the Srila Prabhupada's beginning times in New York City, he had recorded himself singing Kunti Maharani's prayers. So he literally, when he was struggling with finances and everything, he still brought a recorder, which was like worth a 1 month rent, but he still brought it and he recorded Kunti Maharani's prayers. And these prayers are the only section of the verses Srila Prabhupada ever recorded from Srimad Bhagavatam. He was living alone on West 72 Street in New York. And during the winter of 65 to 66, these were the difficult times. And Prabhupada was not only alone, but he had no shower or kitchen in his where he was staying, his humble abode. So to bath and to cook his meals, Dr. Mishra's apartment, he had to literally, which was a yoga studio as well, Prabhupada had to walk 7 blocks in the frigid cold, and he had to tolerate the wind, and it was very hard for him, because he went from India to New York. So it was a very hard, harsh winter for him. Although Srila Prabhupada had an overcoat and a sweater, but that was not the right, I should say, clothing for New York, because he bought them from Vrindavan, so it was suitable for only hot tropical climates and not for New York winters. So what happened is, on May 31st, he had a stroke, and when he was unwell, he requested 3 things. He wanted the newly completed painting of Lord Narsingha Dev, and then he requested devotees to chant Narsingha Dev mantra and Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And third, he wanted someone to recite Queen Kunti Maharani's prayers from Srimad Bhagavatam. And years later also, when he was living in his unfinished residence in Vrindavan, and Krishna Balram temple was built, which was inaugurated in 75. Srila Prabhupada celebrated Janmashtami, and then following day he celebrated his Vyas Puja appearance day at the construction site, and the very next day he became ill again with torrid fever, and he was totally collapsed. Yet again, he asked to read the prayers of Queen Kunti, and the Queen Kunti prayers were very, very dear to him. So I have also understood that Queen Kunti's prayers are not any ordinary prayers. They're from the bottom of her heart. In her heart, the truths of, I would say, spiritual knowledge reside in a very mature and assimilated way. And when she composes a poem, or as we call prayers, we can understand what devotion to Krishna is. We can understand how pure devotees think about Krishna. It gives us a kind of template to pray to Krishna, and it gives us a way to fathom the ocean like heart of pure devotees who are deeply devoted to Krishna in any time, place, or circumstances. So I will end my class here with a strong desire to develop qualities like Kunti Maharani. Kunti Maharani ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Sucheta Mataji. Thank you so much for wonderful class, the practical tips, and also it was really structured. And as I mentioned, practical tips to bring up our children in a nice way, the way Kuntimara and his parents brought her up. I request all the devotees to share their realizations, experiences, and also if they have any questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Sucheta Mataji.
Oh, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Sucheta, for the lovely class that you gave. I was finding myself agreeing with you in regards to the world and parenting and how it is now. So I was saying similar things something similar or along the same lines last week in my class about the pressures already placed on a baby as soon as it's born for its future. The pressure is already there for its education, and for the basically until adulthood. And I really liked how you spoke about the independence and how we're taught to be independent. I thought it was very, very on the ball, very, very on the ball. It's wonderful. Thank you for saying that, and thank you for your class today. It was excellent. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji, for encouraging me. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. I think there are no questions or any further comments. So we'll end the class here and meet again next week with another wonderful speaker on these verses.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you for a wonderful class.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you for the lovely class.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the wonderful class.